Environmentally, seems like a lot of branding is bullshit. In the first 2 episodes of Worn Out, we learned about how unsustainable the fashion industry is, like how it contributes to toxic pollution and makes climate change worse. Kind of makes you want to shop more sustainably, right? If so, you're not alone. As people get more concerned about the climate crisis and pollution, they're looking for clothes that don't make these problems worse. In fact, online searches for sustainable fashion tripled between just 2016 and 2019. It seems these days every brand wants to call itself sustainable. You may have noticed that these terms like green and eco-friendly and sustainable are all over fashion branding these days.
The sustainable brand.
Shop luxury the sustainable way.
Fashion, but with a more sustainable means of production.
But sustainable has no legal definition.
To learn what's up with all this green marketing, I called up Dr. Ren Montgomery. She's a professor of management and sustainability at Western University's Ivey Business School.
I think we all know as consumers that we're seeing so many more things that are green, that have, green writing, green packaging, pretty flowers and birds, and, marketers know that there's a lot of interest.
Some brands are putting all these environmental labels on their clothes to show they really are making changes to their production to make it more sustainable. But other times, it's just empty marketing. And there's a word for that, greenwashing.
So our definition was communications that misleads people into forming overly positive opinions or ideas about an organization's environmental impact or practices. We're looking at that green packaging or those sort of squishy terms that, natural and clean and things like that are really, and we've seen data even out of the FTC and things like that, are really confusing people and making them think things are doing more than they're doing.
Distinguishing between real environmental efforts and greenwashing can be really hard. There's a lot of terms that are getting thrown around. What does it mean when a brand says that a jacket is made of recycled material? Oftentimes that refers to the fact that a brand uses fabrics made out of single-use plastics, like trash soda bottles or shopping bags or straws. As we learned in the first episode of Worn Out, around the world, clothing manufacturers are producing tons of new plastic materials like polyester and spandex.
I use a lightweight, all-bias, non-woven polyester
to turn into clothes. And those are a problem because they're made of fossil fuels, which heat up the planet. Fabrics made of all that plastic trash do have a way lower carbon impact than virgin plastic materials. And reclaiming all that garbage also prevents it from going into landfills or incinerators or becoming litter in our oceans or on the land. But I also talked to Gary Cook, who analyzes fashion brands' sustainability at the organization Stand.Earth. And he said it's not a perfect system because once you turn plastic bottles into clothes, you can't really turn them into much else besides mattress stuffing or insulation. You can't make them back into bottles.
Companies need to actually focus on solutions rather than taking waste from the plastic industry. Gathering plastics from the ocean and act like that's path to them being green, when actually we need a bigger system change about plastic and getting away from fossil-based fabrics, period. Otherwise, a single-use plastic bottle that turns into a shirt or a shoe for a period of time.
So this jacket might have probably 80, 90 plastic bottles.
It's still a linear system.
Another greener alternative to buying those plastic clothes is to buy natural fibers, like cotton and linen. And those produce way less CO2 in production than something like polyester. When buying those fabrics, just be careful about their effect on land use. For instance, a fabric like rayon or viscose, it's natural, it's made of wood pulp. But the question of how eco-friendly it is depends on how it's sourced. 150 million trees are chopped down every year to turn into those fabrics. While you're at it, you may also want to look for stuff that's made of hemp or bamboo. Those take up way less water and land to produce, and they also grow way faster than trees. While it takes 10 to 30 years for trees to grow to harvest, bamboo can be harvested in just 3 to 5 years, and hemp can be harvested in just 4 months. That makes them far more renewable options.
And what we need to have is a focus on natural fibers, not driving more pollution from chemicals and fossil fuel fertilizers. You grow this rather than just dig it out of the ground, producing products that are better for the planet and last longer.
And by the way, if you're wondering how you know that an item of clothing is made of organic fibers, it'll probably tell you so. To get that certification, brands need to meet a number of criteria laid out by the US Department of Agriculture. There's other non-governmental certifications too. The organization BlueSign awards their certification to brands that agree to work to cut down pollution from textile manufacturing. And another organization, Ecotex, gives their certification to brands that don't use toxic chemicals in their fabric. These labels can be really useful tools to figure out what's greenwashing and what's not, but they're not all created equal.
We're starting to see more greenwashing in them too, right? So now there's a whole bunch of certifications are trying to get around this or have slightly looser standards, but also give consumers that assurance like, hey, I saw this little round symbol, it's got a certification. I guess somebody has checked it out for me and it must be okay. They're not all of the same degree or the same quality.
So if you're on the lookout for greenwashing when you're looking at these labels, you might want to go online and just check out what each one of them really means. Are the organizations who dole them out actually run by experts, or are they run by people in the fashion industry?
The ones that tend to set off alarm bells for me are just, a board full of industry members. Some of them, it's just as long as you make continual improvement, is not enough for me as a consumer. I want something that's doing better than that when I'm choosing to, wear their t-shirt or drink their wine.
And if you're worried about how your clothes are contributing to climate change specifically, you might want to check out this report from Gary's organization, Stand.Earth. They created the Filthy Fashion Scorecard to rate brands' climate commitments.
And now as a snapshot in 2019 to say, okay, who's actually set targets that are in line with what the climate science says?
And to make the clothing industry more sustainable, we've got to push for more regulation and stricter standards for all these brands.
Like if you really want to do these things, there are ways of doing them, also reinforced by either third parties that are watching over that or government that's watching over that.
Because if you're anything like me, you want to just be able to buy cool clothes and not have to worry about if they're wrecking the planet. If we cleaned up the whole industry, then all fashion would be sustainable fashion.